The SEC just changed the structure of the crypto market forever. Last week, it basically gave the green light to spot crypto ETFs of all kinds, opening the door to a wave of altcoin ETFs that could send billions flooding into the broader crypto market. Finally, that rotation from BTC into altcoins that everyone has been desperate for could be upon us. So, which cryptos are next in line for an ETF approval? What does this mean for altcoin prices? And are we finally about to see a full-blown alt season? Today, we'll tell you everything you need to know. My name is Guy. Stay tuned. Before we begin though, you need to know that I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video should be considered financial or investment advice. This video is simply intended to inform you about the SEC's recent crypto ETF announcement. And if you want to get more content like this, then bash that like button to help support the channel. Now let's start with a quick bit of background. In January 2024, the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, approved 11 spot Bitcoin ETFs in the US, pushing BTC's price above its previous all-time high and eventually driving it well above $100,000. Safe to say, everyone was buzzing. Then in July 2024, the SEC unexpectedly approved 8 spot Ethereum ETFs. Almost everyone then expected ETH's price to react the same way that BTC's did, and well, let's just say that almost everyone was disappointed. We learned the hard way that ETF approvals do not guarantee inflows, but we'll come back to that in a bit. Now, even though the spot Ethereum ETFs weren't particularly bullish for ETH at the time, they were bullish for the altcoin market. That's simply because the approval paved the way for other altcoins to get their own spot ETFs. And this has resulted in dozens of spot altcoin ETF applications being filed since that time. The progress of these applications has been somewhat lackluster, but it looks like this is going to change in a big way. That's because on the 17th of September, the SEC approved new generic listing standards that will speed up the approval process for spot crypto ETFs. These standards will allow exchanges, such as the Nasdaq, the New York Stock Exchange, and the CBOE BZX, to list exchange-traded products, or ETPs, that hold spot commodities without needing the SEC to approve each individual listing. For context, SEC Chairman Paul Atkins has repeatedly remarked that almost every crypto is a commodity, not a security. Translation: almost any altcoin can now get an ETF listed, granted it meets certain criteria. Basically, the crypto held in the ETF must either trade on an exchange that regulators can monitor through the Intermarket Surveillance Group, or have a futures contract that's been listed on a regulated market for at least 6 months, with an agreement in place to share trading data. As you'll soon see, this means that over a dozen altcoins qualify. So long as the proposed ETF meets these generic listing standards pre-approved by the SEC, the exchange can proceed with the listing, regardless of whether the ETF is for one cryptocurrency or a basket of multiple cryptos. As Atkins explained, quote, "By approving these generic listing standards, we are ensuring that our capital markets remain the best place in the world to engage in the cutting-edge innovation of digital assets." Now, this recent announcement by the SEC has dramatically raised hopes for the increased adoption of crypto, especially when it comes to the altcoin market. For instance, James Seyfarth, senior ETF analyst at Bloomberg, said that, quote, "This is the crypto ETP framework we've been waiting for. Get ready for a wave of spot crypto ETP launches in coming weeks and months." Similarly, Kristen Smith, the president of Solana Policy Institute, said, quote, "These new generic listing standards are a net positive for US investors, markets, and digital asset innovation. Excited for the next wave of crypto adoption." Naturally, this begs the question of which altcoins are likely to be approved for a spot ETF. Well, as it happens, some cryptos have already been given the green light. On the same day that the SEC revealed its new listing process for ETFs, it also approved the first ETF containing multiple crypto assets. This was Grayscale's Digital Large Cap Fund, which was renamed as the Grayscale CoinDesk Crypto 5 ETF on listing. It's comprised of BTC, ETH, XRP, SOL, and ADA. The following day, on the 18th of September, Rex Osprey, a collaborative effort between Rex Shares and Osprey Funds, listed 2 ETFs. These were for XRP and Dogecoin, which are called XRPR and DOJE, respectively. What's interesting is that these were filed using a different process, which is outside the scope of this video. The reason why we mention them is because Eric Balchunas, another senior ETF analyst for Bloomberg, explained that out of the 710 ETFs to have been launched in 2025, the XRP ETF had the strongest opening day, while the Doge ETF was the 5th strongest. He added that, quote, "This is a good sign for the onslaught of altcoin ETFs coming soon." Put simply, the successful launch of the spot XRP and spot Dogecoin ETFs last week suggests that the other altcoin ETFs will be similarly successful when they launch and won't be falling flat on their face like the spot Ethereum ETFs did when they launched in 2024. So, which other altcoins will get their own dedicated spot ETFs? According to Balchunas, there are potentially 12 altcoins that meet the SEC's minimum listing criteria, since they already have futures listings on Coinbase. These are Litecoin's LTC, Bitcoin Cash's BCH, Dogecoin's Doge, which technically already has an ETF approved, Polkadot's DOT, Shiba Inu's SHIB, Avalanche's AVAX, Chainlink's Link, Stellar's XLM, Solana's Sol, Hedera's HBAR, Cardano's ADA, and Ripple's XRP, which also technically has an ETF already approved. And if you want to maximize your returns on these cryptos if they rally on the back of a spot ETF approval, then you have to check out the Coin Bureau deals page. That's where you'll find sign-up bonuses of up to $100,000, trading fee discounts of up to 50%, and deposit cashbacks of up to 75% on the best crypto exchanges. All you need to do right now is hit the link in the description or scan this QR code. And once you get on the deals page, you'll see all of our offers across a range of exchange partners. Click on one of the Sign Up Now buttons and that should take you right to the deal. Now, these deals won't be around forever, so take advantage of them while you can using, I'll remind you, the link in the description or the QR code on screen. Now, in case you forgot, there have been a lot of altcoin ETFs in the pipeline for quite some time, and the list of pending altcoin ETFs has grown massively since our last update. So, who's filed for these ETFs and for which altcoins? Well, first, let's give credit where credit is due. Most of the following information comes from James Seyfarth, who you'll recall is a senior ETF analyst at Bloomberg. Seyfarth has painstakingly tracked every altcoin ETF and collated his findings into one convenient place. As you'll soon see, that's a lot of ETFs to track. In total, there have been 91 altcoin ETF applications. Of these, 11 have been approved already. These include the Grayscale CoinDesk Crypto 5 ETF that I mentioned earlier, as well as 2 dual ETFs for BTC and ETH, which were issued by Hashdex and Franklin Templeton. There are also 2 Ethereum ETFs issued by the New York Stock Exchange, another Ethereum ETF issued by the CBOE, and a so-called Bitcoin in Kind ETF issued through a collaboration between the Nasdaq and 21 Shares. Other approvals so far include 2 Solana derivatives ETFs issued by Volatility Shares, a Solana ETF with staking rewards by Rex Osprey, and an XRP derivatives ETF by Teucrium. Now, as for the remaining pending ETFs, these have been requested by a number of issuers. The issuer putting in the most requests is Canary Capital, which has filed for 10 altcoin ETFs, specifically for Litecoin, Solana, XRP, Hedera, Sui, Tron, Sei, Injective, Axelar, and Pengu. And yes, you did hear that last one right. If you watched our last altcoin ETF update, you'll know that Canary filed for an ETF holding both Pengu tokens and Pudgy Penguin NFTs, just what institutions have long been desperate for. If approved, it'll be the first US-based ETF to carry both NFTs and cryptocurrency. And you can learn more about that in the video over here, by the way. Anyhow, next up, we have Grayscale, which has filed 6 spot ETF applications for Litecoin, Solana, Dogecoin, XRP, Cardano, and Hedera. Bitwise has also filed 6 spot ETF applications for Solana, Dogecoin, XRP, Chainlink, Aptos, and Near, while 21 Shares has filed 6 spot ETF applications for Solana, Dogecoin, XRP, Polkadot, Sui, and Ondo. Meanwhile, Van Eck has filed for just 3 spot ETFs, which were for Solana, Avalanche, and BNB. Franklin Templeton has applications for Solana and XRP, while CoinShares has ETF applications for Litecoin and XRP. There are also a few issuers that have filed for just one altcoin ETF. Specifically, Fidelity has filed for a Solana ETF, WisdomTree has filed for an XRP ETF, and Invesco has collaborated with Galaxy Digital to file for a Solana ETF too. And not only that, but there are also 7 pending basket ETFs, that is, ETFs holding multiple cryptos. These are Hashdex's Nasdaq Crypto Index and Bitwise's 10 Crypto Index. CraneShares has 2 pending basket ETFs, including its CF Large Cap Crypto ETF and its Coinbase 50 Index. Trump Media and Technology Group, the parent company of Truth Social, also collaborated with Crypto.com to file for the Crypto Blue Chip ETF. CoinShares has also filed for its own digital asset basket ETF, and Canary has filed for the American-made crypto ETF. Intriguingly, a number of issuers also have pending ETFs using the same method as RexShares and Osprey Fund. The vast majority of these were filed in January, around the time that Trump took office. Tuttle Capital has the most applications pending under this approach, with ones for XRP derivatives as well as Sol, the Trump and Melania meme coins, LTC, Bonk, BNB, ADA, Link, and DOT. Then there's ProShares, which has 4 pending ETF applications for Solana derivatives and another 4 for XRP derivatives. Teucrium also has 2 ETFs pending for XRP derivatives. There's also Rex Osprey, which has ETFs pending for the Trump meme coin, as well as ETH, BTC, XRP, Bonk, and Doge. Phew, that was a lot to get through. Well done for sticking in there, folks. But this leaves 2 big questions. When could these altcoin ETFs be approved? And will their respective cryptos actually benefit from them? Well, let's start with when they could be approved. To answer this, we first need to go back to one of the basket ETFs we mentioned earlier, specifically Grayscale's Digital Large Cap Fund, which you'll recall was renamed as the Grayscale CoinDesk Crypto 5 ETF. This was technically approved on the 1st of July this year, but was halted by the SEC the following day, pending further review. So, what gives? Well, according to renowned crypto journalist Eleanor Terrett, it was rumoured that the SEC was exploring a simplified listing structure for crypto ETFs that would automate much of the approval process. Obviously, we now know that this was more than just a rumour. But here's where things get interesting. Terrett explained that the new process would involve ETF issuers filing an S1 form rather than the traditional route of filing a 19B4. The difference is that with an S1, the approval window is just 75 days, rather than the 240 days with 19B4 applications. After the 75-day wait, exchanges are free to list the ETF. Now, consider that the SEC unveiled these new guidelines on the 17th of September. This means that we can expect approvals 75 days later, which takes us to the 1st of December. However, even with the 240-day approval window under the former 19B4 filings, many pending altcoin ETFs actually have approval deadlines that fall way before this date. What's more is that the lion's share of these fall in mid to late October. This means October could be a huge month for a wide range of cryptos, namely LTC, Sol, Doge, XRP, ADA, and of course ETH. The question is, will these cryptos actually benefit from getting their own dedicated ETF? Well, the answer is a bit of a mixed bag. In the short term, these ETFs could be a nothing burger, but it depends on how much attention they draw to the altcoins in question. For example, you have Grayscale's aforementioned mixed ETF, which didn't seem to move the needle on any of the altcoins involved. On the other hand, though, Doge saw a rally going into the approval of the spot Dogecoin ETF. In the long term, it depends on the inflows these altcoin ETFs get. The caveat is that these altcoins need to offer these investors something worth investing in. Some applications, like the numerous meme coin ETFs, seem to have been done just to test the waters, so to speak. The Pengu and Trump ETFs seem to have been done as more of a marketing stunt, with the goal of creating headlines and increasing brand awareness. Now, given how the crypto market reacted to the SEC's change around the crypto ETF approval process, And given how some cryptos like Doge responded to the listing of their spot ETFs, and how others like XRP saw large inflows, this all suggests that the upcoming spot altcoin ETF listings should bring more attention and investment back to the altcoin market in October. But this begs the biggest question of all, and that's what comes next for crypto regulations. The answer is quite a bit. For instance, back in June, Paul Atkins revealed that the SEC is actively considering a, quote, innovation exemption framework. This would give DeFi platforms and other on-chain projects some temporary regulatory breathing room. The idea is to let startups, DAOs, and smart contract developers build and launch without the immediate threat of enforcement, as long as they meet certain short-term conditions. However, we should note that those conditions haven't been ironed out yet, at least not at the time of shooting this video. Meanwhile, in August, Caroline Pham, the acting chair of the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, or CFTC, also launched an initiative to enable trading of spot crypto asset contracts on registered TradFi futures exchanges. Now, for those wondering, a spot crypto asset contract would work like a futures contract, but instead of tracking future prices, it mirrors spot crypto prices. And in late August, there was another exciting development from the CFTC when it announced that offshore crypto exchanges now have a pathway to legally serve US clients by registering under the Foreign Board of Trade. Caroline Pham said in a statement, quote, "Starting now, the CFTC welcomes back Americans who want to trade efficiently and safely under CFTC regulations and opens up US markets to the rest of the world. It's just another example of how the CFTC will continue to deliver wins for President Trump as part of our crypto sprint." On top of this, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC, announced back in March that it would be removing earlier constraints to give banks under its jurisdiction more freedom to engage in crypto-related activities without prior approval. There's also the pending Clarity Act, which provides regulatory, clarity for non-stablecoin crypto assets. It also clarifies the oversight roles between the SEC and CFTC for different asset types and trading activities. The Clarity Act was passed in the House but has yet to be considered by the Senate at the time of shooting. For what it's worth, many pro-crypto politicians are promising to have the bill passed by the end of the year. So, regulatory clarity from the SEC, CFTC, and the Clarity Act will allow crypto projects of all kinds to innovate like never before. And more importantly, it will finally make it possible for investors of all kinds to allocate to crypto in size in a compliant way. And this sets the stage for a massive altcoin season which should not be underestimated. The only question is when it will start.
When? When exactly?
Okay, if you want to see how the 2025 bull market will change everything, then check out the video right over here. And if you want to learn more about the CFTC's impact on crypto, then check out this video over here. Okay, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you again in the next one. This is Guy, over and out.